Okay, why would you want to buy a technology? Well, that's an interesting question. The short answer is it'll let you do something over and over and over again with a known outcome and a known likelihood of success, and it generates net utility, net value in an economic context, and thus it makes sense to buy it because, quote unquote, you're better off after buying it than before buying it. But you still may not buy it. There may be other things going on. You're about to buy a new car, your kid gets sick and you have to pay hospital expenses. There goes the car. Something more important happens. You're about to buy a new car, but then they come out with a special airfare for a trip to China, and you've always, all your life, you've wanted to see the Great Wall of China, so the new car goes on the back burner because your car still works good enough. Well, you have analogous kinds of things in buying technology in industry. There is the marginal utility is the term we use for that. You know, what's the incremental benefit of spending $1 on the technology versus $1 on something else? And when we look at this, we quickly realize that there are a variety of reasons why, even though a technology seems attractive, has a competitive advantage, meets end user needs, you may not buy it. So now we got to worry about where's the oomph. And in order to understand where's the oomph, there's a story in that I like to use, which is the story of the zipper. The zipper was invented by Elias Howe at the time of the sewing machine. He's the guy who invented the sewing machine. He was doing it for the Civil War. And if you're making uniforms, it's hard to go back and forth with a rudimentary sewing machine and put on buttons. It's easier to go like this. And so you invent a closing device called the zipper. He didn't call it the zipper. He called it a universal closing device. Not closing, universal closing device. And that makes a lot of sense for a rudimentary sewing machine. Unfortunately, he didn't design it very well, didn't work well. The war ended before he perfected it, sort of got dropped. Much later, Goodyear picked it up, used it for galoshes. I think Goodyear actually developed the name zipper. Later on, World War I hits. During World War I, they use it for flight jackets, for pilots, and saddlebags for mules. It's a niche application. Often a new technology comes in this kind of specialty niche application. They debug it there and then it moves on. As part of all of this second history of the zipper, it was reinvented by somebody, and that design we know today as the zipper came out of that invention. Despite all of this, the zipper never really took off until a bunch of factors happened. The first factor was the war ended. After the war, all the guys who were making clothing had surplus capacity, so they started making clothing for civilians. This is the period in which the mall develops, in which locally made clothing begins to disappear and industrial made clothing propagates throughout America. So we have industrial made clothing as one factor. That means we're mechanizing things, makes the zipper much more attractive. Secondly, the guys come home from the war, and the women are happy, and the guys are happy, and woo-hoo, we got the Roaring '20s. And in the Roaring '20s, there was a dance called the Lindy. And if you've ever seen a flapper dress, like in the movie Chicago, well, the flapper dress is very tight. And if you're middle-aged like me, and you're trying to wear something very tight, well, you know, buttons sometimes spread apart. You'll see the little gaps of the hole. Imagine you're in a flapper dress down here and you got buttons and you're not quite as shapely as you'd like to be. Obviously, a zipper holds you in tight, much more attractive. There were two designers in America at that time. One was Christian Dior. One was two major designers. One was Christian Dior. One was an Italian woman. I've blanked out on her name. She was a fascist, went back during World War II to be with Mussolini. The heck with her. But she did do one thing. She introduced the zipper into the Lindy dress. It was an overnight success. You might say sex sold the zipper. It was a hot technology. The point is simply this. In the context of the Lindy dress, the zipper had oomph. There was a reason for people to buy it. In the context of industrial manufacturing of clothing For manufacturers, the zipper had oomph. There was reason for them to buy it because it made it easier to make the clothing with machinery. So there was oomph all up and down from the end user up the supply chain, and that's why the zipper was adopted. So when you're looking at your technology, it's not enough to just find an application where you have a competitive advantage. You have to find an application where there's enough oomph that somebody's going to want to acquire your technology. That's the key to understanding why somebody would buy a technology. Competitive advantage and oomph.